It's story time. The Lady Who Lived in My Closet, submitted by Jury. Hi, at the Sapphire. I'm Marjorie, but most people call me Jury. I've been following you and your stories ever since I was 13, and I'm a big fan. Ever since I was a child, I have been sensitive to the paranormal. Unexplainable things always happen to me, like doors shutting closed when there's no wind, getting cursed by an aswang, and occasionally talking to myself, and when asked by relatives who I'm talking to, I would tell them, "No one, just my friend." But I would like to tell you about my encounter with the lady who lived in my closet when I was 11. My parents are originally from a province called Romblon. When I was 2 years old, we moved to Manila and stayed for good. As I grew older, my parents realized that I had a third eye. My parents are both believers in the paranormal and are devoted Catholics. My mom and dad both agreed to have an albularyo close my third eye since I was way too young. Fast forward to 2016, me and my family moved houses. We were always renting, so growing up, we moved every year. I got used to it at that point in my life. My dad was a head waiter on a cruise ship based in the US. We never really had money problems, but that year, money was tight, so we had to move early as my parents couldn't afford rent and putting my brother and sister through college at the same time. My mom and sister found a place that fit our budget that year. It was an old house. It looked like it was abandoned for years and was ready to be demolished. Me, my parents, and sister shared a room. It is quite common for families who rent here in the Philippines to share a room. My brother was at college. So my mom and sister and some of my brother's childhood friends were in the living room unpacking. My job was to take clothes out of the box and put them in the built-in cabinets. I then got an eerie feeling that I was being watched. Of course, when you're 10, you have a wild imagination. I immediately ran out of the room and went to my mom in the kitchen. I told her, "Ma, I don't like it here." She smiled at me and said, "Only for 1 year. After this, we'll move to a proper house with your own bedroom." Fast forward a couple months. I had just gotten home from school when I went to the bedroom. It was just me and my mom at home because my brother and sister were at school. I then heard a bang coming from the closet. But it was the closet that no one could open. And I mean no one, not even my brother's best friend who was a bodybuilder, could open that closet. I just shrugged it off and continued to watch the cartoon I was watching on my iPad. After a few minutes, I heard it again, but this time it was a loud bang like someone wanted to get out. I then looked up and saw her. I'm not allowed to say her name anymore, but I saw a lady standing in front of the closet. Her height was that of an average Filipino woman. She told me not to be scared, and she introduced herself. She told me that she lived in that closet for years and years and that she wanted a friend. I was an empathetic kid even when it came to spirits, so I said, "Sure, I can be your friend." Things were normal when she first started to show herself to me. She would come with me to my school and just watch me study. But then things took a turn on my 11th birthday. I started to invite friends to my house and we would play on the front porch. And she would be angry at me. She would tell me threats like,
"If you tell your parents about me, I'll kill them."
For the first time, I was scared of her. But I knew better. The next week, I gathered up the courage and told my mom. I could tell that my mom was worried. The following week, my dad came home, and my mom then told him what was happening. He said it was weird because whenever he's alone in that room, he hears the same banging sound from our bedroom closet. My mom and dad then decided to bring me to a powerful albularyo. I don't know why, but during the drive, I felt really irritated. I got angry at my family for bringing me there and told them I didn't want to get rid of the lady. When we arrived at the parking lot of one of the churches, I felt it. Rage just hovered all over my body and I cursed at everyone. The albulario came up to me and talked to the lady. I didn't hear what they were talking about as the lady had her hands on my forehead and I was screaming and crying. Then suddenly I felt like a wave of relief wash over me. I felt calm and relaxed. The albulario tied a red yarn around my hands and told me not to take it off no matter what until it broke off on its own. After that, I never saw or felt any spirits or entities that were in my house. We moved later. Fast forward to the present. I'm 18 years old now, and we moved to our own house. I'm a beginner at Wicca and practicing witchcraft, and I'm a self-taught witch who has a lot more to learn. During the months of April and May in 2023, I fell ill. My doctors weren't exactly sure what was wrong with me, but went with inflammatory bowel disease. They recommended a colonoscopy to confirm their diagnosis. A week before my initial colonoscopy, I was studying because I missed a lot of school, and my university requested that I take my finals before going into the procedure. I was studying late at night in the dining room when I felt a sudden thirst. I looked up from my book. Across from me was a window, and I saw a woman staring at me angrily. She looked mad. Her eyes were red and her hair was covering half her face. She was wearing a white dress, but with smears and smudges of mud. I blinked twice, and she was still there. Before I could do anything, she smiled at me and disappeared. A week after my procedure, I was doing my morning healing chants when I realized that was her. The lady in my closet. It was her, but I didn't recognize her. Before, she looked clean. Her dress was so white, but now it had mud and dirt all over it. After that night, I didn't encounter her again, and I hope it stays that way. I told my parents, and they said to not acknowledge her presence. So that's what I've been doing, not acknowledging. Although I'm not scared of her, there's this constant doubt in me. I really need your advice at the Sapphire on what to do. Thank you for reading my story, Jury.
Oh my gosh, this is so creepy. Thank you for sending this in. So a lot of times, spirits who become earthbound are stuck in the same mental state that they were in when they died. It's often the reason that they're earthbound because they're still feeling very human emotions instead of transcending. So it's likely that this woman was very lonely when she died, making her a very lonely entity. And when she saw you, she quickly latched onto you for attention and companionship. But because you are a living human being, you have a life and friends outside of her, and she became jealous. And I think the form that she took when she appeared all muddy and dirty, that might have been her true form, and what she presented herself as when you were a child was sort of like a mask. Also, when our physical bodies are sick, we become more susceptible to psychic or spiritual attacks. So I think that the woman appeared to you before your colonoscopy because she was trying to get to you again while you were in this somewhat weakened state. But you should be fine. I think you're already doing enough by not speaking her name and not acknowledging her. She wants your attention, so if you take that away, she should leave you alone. Just make sure to be consistent with your regular spiritual upkeep, like meditations and banishing rituals.